perfect timing. Jackie's rolling in.
All right. I thought I have two I'm usually in well, Arizona doesn't change time zones, but anyway, I have two invites, one for 9 and one for 10. So I thought I somehow
Oh,
missed this. Yeah, I don't even know how that happened. But
yeah, that's odd. That's odd. It
yeah,
came
so they're
twice,
both,
huh?
and I was like, uh-oh, because time change.
Right, right.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Sorry, my computer just, I don't know, decided to do some stupid update, of course.
Always at the right
No
time.
problem. Yeah, so and also I'm at my parents and they don't have a great internet, so you never know. But I did a Zoom the other day and it was fine. But I also tried to download some data and couldn't do that. So just FYI, maybe I have to call you back.
Okay.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, as I was saying, this company I invested in a little over 2 years ago. I invested in the founders, Matt and Grant, and they took it when I invested in them. It was kind of funny. They really didn't have the company formed. They were doing like consulting services, but they hadn't really formed it. Anyway, since with my investment, that was kind of a key thing that they used to get it rolling. And by the end of that year, we were looking at a company that was going to do in the next 12 months $1 million in revenue. All right, nothing crazy, but they had already developed it to that point. Fast forward 2 years, and they were trying to build this platform and get further investment. And basically, when we went to the market, not me, those two guys primarily, when they went to the market, they were not getting the attention and the money and the capital they needed in the beginning. So they hooked up with these guys in Canaccord. One of the founders is Canadian, and so they hooked up with Canaccord Genuity, which is a venture capital firm. And one of the guys there took an interest, liked what he saw, and he brought in a bunch of small investors, and they came in as a whole and did a little over $1 million. And he was telling them that, you may want to, in order to return capital to investors, right? That's what it's all about when you're raising money. You have to have a way to get it back to everybody.
Right.
They realized they needed to do this roll-up strategy. And so they needed to acquire companies in order to get to a larger size, still providing the same products and services, but once you get over a certain threshold, now suddenly you're getting the attention of all the bigger firms. You get the attention of private equity. You're getting the attention of a lot of the different components of the industry that are looking for companies to fund in order to grow even faster. And so we kind of hit that spot, right? We're closing out on December 15th, the last of the angel seed round, and then moving to Series A. And by the time we're done with this round, we'll be looking at, we'll have the next 12 months at 16 plus million in revenue, with a valuation of almost $70 million.
And do you guys, I'm still kind of unclear. Do you, so you just, are you can continue if you're not done explaining.
I'm not done. So that was the growth strategy and the acquisition strategy.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you what we actually did. Right.
Okay.
So what those guys, their expertise is digital marketing, campaigns, doing all this stuff. So they have and I don't have the presentation in front of me, forgive me.
That's okay.
They have
I mean,
what's called a wheel.
I'm by no means an investor, so this would be. I mean, I've done stocks, but this would be my first investment. So anyway, yeah.
The reality is it's no different than doing the stocks. They're just public and this is private. That's the only difference, really.
Yeah.
So they do digital marketing. So essentially, they focus on e-commerce brands. And so my e-commerce brand, right, Bold Biologics. This was the reason why I ended up working with them, because I was launching Bold Biologics around the same time that they were doing this, and they agreed to do the marketing for me. And so I'll tell you the deal that they did for me. I did $20,000 down, and this is not, mind you, all the deals are different. And then it was a 10% top line revenue share, and they would do unlimited marketing services for me. And so I thought, hey man, I'm a solopreneur. That's a pretty good deal in order to help me build this brand. I'm a small upfront cost, and I've basically got marketing for the rest. As long as I have the company open, I've got the marketing expenses covered. They're free, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
They're not free, right? Because you're paying for them from top line revenue.
Right.
The beauty of it is they're helping you grow that top line revenue. So they don't get paid unless you get paid. They don't make money unless you make money.
Right.
I thought it was pretty good model, and they've been expanding the model. And the reason why I think it's a good investment down the road is, and this is where it gets kind of crazy and complicated, right?
Okay.
So we, I know. So, when you're looking to grow, you might either use debt or credit, right? You might get a credit card or a line of credit with a bank, or you're going to sell your equity and get investors. We have a debt provider called Pipe, and I just realized this in the last few weeks. They were able to give us a line of credit based on our next 12 months of receivables, our invoices, because we do monthly invoices, right? Where it's not really project based, it's monthly. So they're able to fund us based on the next 12 months of revenue. So they did that. What I didn't know is that they actually sold that to an individual investor. Like they're not a bank. They actually used it as a investment tool for investors. So an investor was able to invest in this, and the way that they get paid back is our debt provider charges interest as we pay them back. So they have this nice piece of interest plus the collateral, and they pay back the investor. Everybody makes money and everyone's happy.
So if I understand that last part correctly, you're saying your company, they gave you a line of credit, but that your line of credit was based on an individual investor kind of investing
It was
in you,
actually sold to an investor. Our receivables were sold to an investor.
like
Yeah.
a angel investor.
Yeah,
of
exactly.
sort.
It's
So, I
done
mean,
like
right? Yeah.
yep. It's done like an SPV, if you've ever heard that
And it's
term.
done and anonymously, like essentially you didn't know who it was and you don't really care, which is probably better. I don't know, right? Or so it was
Yeah,
done
we didn't know.
anonymously. They just take, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know
Huh.
who it was.
What is biologics? What do you do?
Oh, my company is a CBD company.
Okay.
So I have 4 CBD products that I have out on the market, retail, and I use them to develop the website, to develop all the content, to manage social media, to create videos, all that kind of stuff. Do email list,
Right.
So the only reason I bring up that debt thing is because there are investors out there looking for these, very high net worth individuals typically, or family offices are looking for alternative investments like these that are super unique, right? You and I, we don't go invest in this stuff. You got to be like have multiple millions of dollars to get access to that kind of investment. It's not just sitting around like forever.
Right.
The reason I bring that up is because the way we're moving this into a fund structure, and we've already got the providers that are going to run background checks. They're going to run the credit checks. They're going to do all this. It's called, one of our partners is Wiser Funding. And so we are now going to be like Pipe that lent us the money. We're going to lend advertising dollars to the companies we work with in exchange for that 10% revenue share, or whatever.
Your company's going to now do that.
Okay. So imagine this, right? So not only do we provide the digital marketing services to these companies,
Uh-huh.
right? But now we're going to provide them the capital to do more marketing and increase their revenue. And the capital is based on this fund structure where it's being sold to investors.
And you call that pipe?
Pipe
Is
is
that-
the company, no, Pipe is the company that
Oh.
is the debt provider to Napkin.
Oh, okay.
And I use that to demonstrate the model. So we're creating a fund, basically a series of funds that would do this. And it's great. I never thought it would be possible, but these companies are out there that package these things up because obviously there's a company called oh my goodness, it's a Canadian company, Clearbank. If you check out Clearbank with a C, I think, Canadian company, they lend money to e-commerce, and in 3 years they grew to $1 billion. So they do our model. The only difference is that they don't provide. So when we take the capital for advertising from our clients, we're actually the ones investing it for them in the market because we know where to put it. We're doing the media buying. We're doing the email campaigns. We may enhance their website. We maybe create videos. So one of our companies is called the Vector that Napkin owns. They're in Ecuador. We can produce Hollywood level 30-minute or 30-second commercials for under $5,000. Those are typically sold in the US for 100,000 or more.
Does that mean you like literally go out, hire models and et cetera, and
We
do the
have
whole Hollywood advertisement thing?
that company has a studio in Ecuador, has a warehouse full of props and wardrobe, and has a roster of actors and models ready to go for a commercial shoot anytime. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So we can provide these really, really rich services in order to boost up the sales of an e-commerce brand. Let's say it's a new, Levi's, right? But somebody smaller, not that's not so huge. We're going to work with them, provide them all this amazing content, and we don't take a fee, we just take a percentage of that top line revenue. And then we can boost them up even higher by working with Wiser Funding to give them extra capital that we then deploy in the market, again, to boost their sales even higher. So the more sales they have,
so the exchanges, like, sorry to go back to you. So like you handed over 20K for the marketing to be a part of, wait, that was for marketing to be part of Napkin, or
it wasn't to be part of Napkin, it was for them to be my marketing.
right. Okay. But you just said they provide amazing content, but for just a percentage of top line revenue. So the percentage of top line revenue is like 10% of what you bring in per year, or how does that work?
It's negotiable, sir. So let's say we were doing a deal with, and by the way, we have clients right now. We have major clients, Burger King, Gatorade. I mean, I could show you the website. We have they would be brands that you would recognize that are our clients. We have the World Cup, right? Qatar. We're doing all the marketing for South America there, so I can show you those pages. But yeah, major MasterCard, major clients. And so the deal, the 10% they did with me was unique because I was a brand new to market. Typically, what they do is work out a campaign structure, and we use blockchain for this. So let's say the campaign, we're doing a specific campaign, it's going to have a discount code or something, right? It's going to be run on Amazon, it's going to be run on Facebook. We can track all of the sales related to that campaign, and as the money comes in, it immediately gets distributed 10%, whatever. Let's say we negotiate 5% with with Mercedes on a specific campaign where we develop the video. And then, so we basically negotiate around that specific campaign. In the case of my company, we did it based on all company sales. But we can, you see what I'm saying? We can be flexible. You know, Ford and Nike are not going to give us top line revenue on their entire company sales. It's not going to happen.
Right. Right.
But we can negotiate for a specific campaign, and then we do it that way.
So how many people are part of Napkin at this point?
We have almost 500 employees.
Wait, so like, I can't remember how long ago
What? Just
you were
over
saying,
2 years ago. Yeah, it's
wait,
crazy.
2 years ago it was two guys and you?
Yeah.
And now you have 500 employees
In
all over. Are they mostly in South America or all over? Obviously it's digital and remote and all that, right?
Yeah, US, Canada, Australia, India, Ecuador, and I think that's, unless I'm missing somebody.
Full-time employees or?
200 full-time, and the rest are, we have a bunch of contractors that work for one of our subsidiaries called No Limit Creatives, and they have contractors all over the world.
So, wow.
Yeah,
I mean, I can be wowed easily,
ride.
obviously, because, you know, I don't have an MBA background, but you know, I'm the scientist, looking for a little break here.
I hear you.
But
No,
actually, I mean, this is good because, you know, I was telling my brother and I was like, well, I think it's, you know, cannabis. I don't even know. I just wanted to know because, you know, Jaclyn was telling me and I was like, well, maybe I should invest because you know, anyway, it's time. Otherwise, I'm just going to retire poor. But he was like, yeah, I'm not gonna invest in any cannabis companies, you know, right now. For, you know, he's done his reading, and I'm like, oh well, now this is great because it's digital and
yeah,
much.
no, no,
So,
my company Bold Biologics is in the CBD space, and I
right,
have some stuff in, you know, in that space, but this is
yeah,
not at all cannabis related.
yeah. So that part's great. Yeah, no, and I was also curious on a different level, you know, because I don't know if I can ask, you know, big intelligent questions, but it sounds interesting. I mean, just listening to you, Jaclyn, I'm sure has heard of, I have a company called Terpedia, which is kind of just sitting there really doing nothing with a great name.
Yep.
In all honesty, you know, I have a co-founder who is an aeronautical space engineer. And before I started this job in Phoenix, we both were in a computational biology lab or, you know, bioinformatics lab.
Yep.
And he was getting a PhD for fun. And I had just finished my postdoc, became friends. I used to talk a lot about terpenes. You know, I'm talking 2002,
Wow.
talking about terpenes. And I wanted to do a little project looking at all the terpene synthases in the database, because that's kind of what my postdoc was about, which, you know, has no relevance literally to the current CBD terpene. But it does to computational biology and predicting, you know, terpenes and what they do. Anyway, and so I can't, like 2000 during COVID, but even I think before COVID, you know, I was just like, hey, let's start a terpene database, kind of like Google, and curate it. And he's extremely capable of that, and actually has just scraped the internet for terpene data. And we really haven't, I should know better because I've been part of like 3 or 4 startups, been part of 2 incubators and bio, whatever, you know, one that was Canopy Boulder with a company called Treatment X. That was us. We didn't make it a year, but you know, so it's kind of like we really didn't quite come up with we're kind of stuck or just lazy, not lazy, 2 scientists who are not CEOs, put it that way. Trying to, what is our minimal viable product, you know, because we could go a lot of ways, and you know, what's that, you know, great model. Anyway, listening to what you said, like if we get off our scientific creative tushies, because we have, you know, come up with lots of ideas, right? I don't know, that's digital marketing sounds like it could work for us, maybe.
Yeah,
down the road.
yeah. To me, it's all about getting the word out. Now, keep in mind, it takes a while, right? Because to build a brand, you got to get domain authority, you got to develop an email list, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
I'm 3 years into Bold Biologics, and I'm finally seeing now the real opportunity to increase sales. 3 years later, which is
no, I get that, because so I was part of it. It was 4 of us and my colleague at Treatment X. So Treatment X was incubated at Canopy Boulder in 2018.
Okay.
And there was 4 of us, and it was a 6-month incubator. And so yeah, we went through all of that, wrote our newsletter, like got to pitch to I always forget the cannabis, the Canada folks in venture capital who are all over it. The top venture capitalists in cannabis.
It's gotta be one of them that's part of Canopy, right? Canopy Growth.
Yeah, it's not Canopy Growth. I can't think of their name right now. This is my middle-aged brain. I need more lion's mane. But we got to go to Vancouver and pitch. Treatment X was what we were trying to do is develop scientific insights based on product. So, people take their product and they do a QR code and fill out a survey and start to really understand, how terpenes and cannabinoids, this is 3 years ago, mind you, where it was still fairly illegal, and, clinical trials and trials in general were difficult and research couldn't be done. It was a good idea. And I've even talked to people who make it sound like it's still a good idea. There's a company called, God, my brain is not working today, which is actually a good thing.
It's Sunday.
Well, it's Sunday. It's been Thanksgiving. It's been a very stressful fall.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fine, great. But they're one of the analytical companies that test. I think they stayed. Did they just stay in this? Yeah, I think they just stayed in the hemp. No, they were in the CBD space. They're less known compared to Steep Hill, but they're in Florida and a couple other states, Florida, Kentucky. It'll come to me. But anyway, they had something called MJ Buddy that did what we wanted to do. And then we almost got bought out in a year by MJ Buddy. And then we were going to be acquisitioned and work for MJ Buddy. But it fell through. So I learned a lot, although it seems almost like monopoly. If that makes sense, because it was like a year, and I don't know, they gave us $30,000, and that's how Canopy Boulder does it. All of the incubator, you all get 30,000, but we immediately spent like 10,000 on their lawyers, and I've done a number of startups the wrong way, which I still am, with Torpedia, and that all of our documents aren't like out there yet,
Right.
even though they should be, and I know better. Yeah, so anyway, that's a little about Torpedia. Yeah.
Well, I still think something like that is needed. Like you said, it's just a matter of getting the exposure. Once you get the exposure, all of a sudden you have a bunch of eyes on the website, and now all of a sudden you're worth something.
Yeah, and over the holidays, please, I guess, don't share, but I was looking for, because I work at a naturopath medical school, I was looking for herbal flashcards, because I've been studying a lot of herbs and I need to know the Latin names and this and that. And I know nobody has this, but I was thinking of a way that we could start to attract attention and bring in business, literally, as we could make terpene flashcards. Nobody's done that. And have a QR code on the flashcard, actually, and then content, which again, we need money for that, because 2 people can't do that. I have a full, unless I quit my job, which when we started Torpedia, I had no job, and it sort of went on hold because I needed money, so I have a job. And that's kind of, that's when Jaclyn met me. And for a moment, I felt like a Hollywood movie star at the Women's Network, where everybody thought, oh my God, she knows something about terpenes. So that's our short story.
Well, not just flashcards, pick 52 of them and do playing cards.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I could do that.
I think you'll sell those a lot more than you would the flashcards.
Yeah, I guess that we
they
could
have
do that.
multiple use,
Yeah. I guess being 2 scientists, like when you go to Leafly and whatnot, right? It's like people are just throwing out there exactly, oh, it does this, it does this, it does this. And we all kind of say the same thing. And really we don't know. And, So
And it's
that's what
different
Terpedia
for-
wants to be, is really sound science, curated, sound scientific information. So like, for example, when you want to make a vaginal feminine cream, it's based on those really selected terpenes based on the literature, which is out there, just like cannabinoids, but not clinical trial and this and that.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess I like to talk about myself as well. No.
It, I mean, if there's a way for us to help you, down the road, we would love that. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like the model that would serve you best would be to have all this data and then license it out to the people that are selling products that want to be backed up by that data.
Right, but like, so what does that what does that mean for that? That's kind of where you get stuck. We kind of think three tiers, like the basic tier. I don't know. The free tier could be buy your cards and QR, and you get some basic information on terpenes that's better than Leafly.
The robot's making a bunch of noise over here.
Oh yeah, but the second and the third tier, where it's like, well, how do you sell that? I mean, so originally, so a year and a half ago, before I moved to Phoenix, we had a couple of clients, and essentially they were like, so I have one client named Candescent. They make candles, and she makes candles specifically with terpenes, old school candles. They're very expensive candles. They're awesome. They smell great, and they're just all natural terpenes. And she's really big on caryophyllene. And so she had already created, I think, 2 or 3 different candles. And we both started talking about, quote, forest bathing at the same time. I don't know if you've ever heard of forest bathing.
Mm-mm.
So, when you go out into the forest and you start to inhale like gymnosperms or pine trees and whatnot, the beautiful forest, right? You're actually inhaling terpenes or smelling them. And those actually have an effect on your immune system. And I found out about that based on looking for a review paper that reviewed terpenes, and what, clinical trials or whatever, literature search there really was, and scientifically on terpenes. And that was the best review I could find, probably I think it was from 2017 or 18. And I don't know quite how she came about it, but forest bathing is kind of the big in hot thing. So anyway, she wanted to create a candle called the Mojo candle. And so essentially, what we would love to be able to do is create an automatic Susan Trapp, the consultant. And that is, you go to the database and you're able to pull out a report. What I ended up doing is going and buying 5 different conifer or different kinds of pine tree essential oils from a high-end essential oil store, got their COAs, made a huge spreadsheet of all of them, and then literally lined them down and spent time studying the terpenes that are very unique, that you never really hear about in the cannabis industry, because as we've got like 5 or 10 top ones, but then there's all these other ones. And looked at ones that were kind of common, unknown, but had literature behind them. And she used 2 of those. And so she not only created her Mojo candle, but they smell great and have these unique terpenes in them. And so in a way, that's the model. I mean, and so I did a couple of other projects kind of like that, where I had another project. There's a company called Go4 that our co-founder, Dan, I introduced him to the co-founder, kind of a difficult, well, not co-founder, but his company is called Go4, and he wanted to help create pain gels or whatever. But again, CBD and terpenes, and just threw in 18 different essential oils and called it good, and said, what other terpene should I add in this? Right. Again, it's a time consuming consultant thing. And so, yeah. And so, the idea is like, how can we certainly can do that and create reports, I would believe, so it's the model in a way is a artificial intelligent terpene consultant.
Yep. Yeah.
And so
it almost to me, like, if a product would be marked with whatever, it's almost like having a certificate of analysis, but it would be like the Susan Trapp certificate of analysis. Like, this product's really stamped as like, if you could sell that.
And yeah, right, because I struggle like consulting as well, right?
Yeah.
Nobody, I mean, which has been a bit ridiculous. I have plenty of professors, right, charge $1,000, $2,000, and I tell so I do this. I put in 10 hours of work, if not more, researching it, and I get less than $1,000 so far. I'm not doing that anymore. I think I've shared that with you, Jaclyn. I'm just like, I can't do that anymore. But yeah, so definitely that's kind of the beginnings of whatever that model is. And actually, interestingly enough, we also, because of working at the Southwest College, are now working a little bit with a professor out of Huntsville, Alabama, who's a computational biologist. And again, I can't share much, but we're utilizing computational biology to look at terpenes. And I don't think anybody's done that. And we have some good data. And so that means not only could we be just Terpedia, I think if I get, I've kind of been through a couple of startups, so I'm almost like, I don't believe it, this can happen, if that makes sense. But I don't know if you've ever been through that stage. I'm a little bit tired and I'm like, do I really want to do this? But anyway, I think we potentially have the ability to become a biotech terpene company. That's what I think.
What do you have? Are you able to use that computational analysis to provide use cases?
Yes and no. I mean, honestly, I haven't, like, he has the whole database and and it's just sitting there. And so in a way it's like, it's a little bit of a white lie.
I'm just wondering, like, what are some of the potential like outputs from that data, and then you can figure out what the market is for it,
The easiest one would be, I mean, we have the potential, we need it curated, right? He knows how to do that. He's very high level, he can hire Russians or whatnot, but so it's not deeply curated, if that makes sense. But for example, so the company Good For, I think this was during COVID or right before COVID. I can't remember, 2019, or early 2020. So, I went and I looked at, again, I had to look at all of his essential oils, and I don't think I had the COAs on them. But so I had to kind of create a table myself of the 18 different essential oils in there, the generic percentages, and then make an assessment of, well, okay, would I add another, essential oil in here? I mean, really, you have a gamish, and it's, idiotic to think that you can throw in probably one extra, what am I missing a percentage of, right? Like, should I add a little more pinene or a little more caryophyllene? I'm like, at the moment, that's a joke. But the reality is that, someone like my co-founder, whose background is aeronautical space engineer, computational biologist, right? Like, we are capable, with the right tools and money as is anybody, and I'm the terpene expert. And so what I did do is that you could do in Terpedia. I didn't use it at the time, but that wouldn't take much computation or much database populating your database to actually do something like that and pump out a report, right? And that was probably 20 hours of work for $1,000.
That's crazy. I'm with you.
Yeah, but those are in a way that is a test case, right? Because you can explain, this is the kind of, that's what you need to do. That's my workflow. That's the process. And for sure, any computer scientist can create a script or an algorithm to do that if you have the right kind of database. I think it's trivial to some extent.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I still don't know, like, what it would be ultimately, what the best ultimate use of the data is.
Exactly.
Is it going to be for the chief science officers of all these companies that are creating products so that they can, like I said, they can license your data in order to make an informed decision of how they develop a product? That's what I'm thinking. But
I mean, that's what I'm thinking, but we kind of sit on it because, that's,
how
do you
many,
think,
it's
can you
not a huge
sell that in the
population.
cannabis industry? Nobody cares. I mean,
Right,
since we're
right.
not about sound science yet, we will
Yeah.
be. And so I don't know, is this, I mean, and maybe we need to be I mean, first of all, everybody loves the name. So, I've sat on the trademark. I was going to get it trademarked because I was also in a different incubator after Canopy Boulder for Terpedia. I think right before COVID as well. I can't remember, and so, we were supposed to get free lawyership and, we were going to get all of our papers and not, I was interested in trademarking, and apparently my understanding is trademarking has changed and we should get it trademarked, but they were kind of like, yeah, it looks like you've been using it. You have a website, this and that, you have a little bit of time if you want to, but I was talking to someone else a month or two ago, I think, who said the trademark laws changed. Sounds like I should trademark it. But anyway, so it's, who are you going to convince? So in a way, are we high-end consultants? I mean, obviously people want more information than what's available on Leafly, which is the exact same thing over and over and over.
Well, I think there's a company that I'm an advisor for that they actually had an offer years ago, believe it or not, by either Leafly or Weed Maps. I can't remember which, probably Leafly, to acquire them. Long story short, they hired an external CEO, screwed them. They had to take the company down and restart. But they have a platform, and once they sort of grow and build, I think they might be a potential client because they have a platform that goes direct to consumer. You know what I mean? Instead of going to individual chief science officers, they may have a whole group of users that would be interested, like Leafly users. Imagine that whole population if you were able to provide this extra bit of data. Not everybody would care, but plenty of people would. But you have
Right,
to, and I think
or
these
even
guys
if
are
it
on
was
track.
real lit searches, I don't want to say watered down, but for example, again, for someone like Jaclyn who wants to start a feminine
Yeah.
company, right? And she's a nurse, so she wants sound science, and she doesn't have the time to research every single terpene, but knows that they're important and what ones are going to be important for vaginal pain or whatever, that right. And so that's kind of where, I don't know, AI can be helpful, or you search that database that's already been curated to and bring it up from the top, so it's not just a long nightmare of trying to read, is this a real, is this real, is this not real? Because again, there's data out there that, I've seen data on caryophyllene and cancer cells and, just like in the cannabinoid industry, but, it's hard to comb through that even as a scientist. For me, I think it's right. I mean,
Yes.
I've been giving talks on terpenes, and I've been very hesitant to talk about the medical or the medicinal or therapeutic benefits, just because you say that, and then people go off into, they get very, they get very excited. Like, for
Start doing
example,
the research.
caryophyllene
Yeah.
binds to CBD2. And I think there's one paper that talks about that. And I've been meaning to go back and reread that paper, because I'm not even sure how I wouldn't say relevant, but how deeply that science was for that specific paper, but it's
Right.
taken off. That
Not
happens
just
a
that,
lot.
not just that, what is the implication of that knowledge? Like, where can it be
Right.
used to benefit someone?
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, that's kind of, again, that's partially why we've sat on it. and I think partially just because I had been underemployed for a while.
Right.
And working at the naturopath school has been incredible, really, because now I've learned a lot about herbs and kind of got back into wet lab biology. So the reality is if Terpedia ended up really becoming a biotech company, and what I wanted to do, which is what I'm doing right now, is studying terpenes on various in vitro cell lines, so that we start to get a bit of understanding of you
Right.
know, what genes are upregulated and down regulated, which is my area of expertise is genomics. Yeah. And that's literally what we're doing for non-cannabis projects in the
And
same
there's
area.
no,
Like we have
do
a
you,
kava project. We have so we're studying kava for a company.
yeah,
Yeah.
are any of the, I don't know the answer to this, are any of the pharmaceuticals, I'm guessing they for sure have to be doing this. They must be employing some people doing some of this research
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
just to get ready for when it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say for sure, but what I do know, so I come from truly like my background it was a fungal terpenoid. When I was in grad school, I worked for an organic chemist who was studying fungal terpenoids that were toxins,
Okay.
right? So so fusarium, which is a problem for cannabis. It's a fusarium is a fungus that will grow on wheat crops in the north and also cannabis, and it produces a toxin called trichothecans. I kind of call it the sister molecule of aflatoxin. So aflatoxin is produced by aspergillus. It grows on peanuts, you know, south of the Mason-Dixon line, and there, you know, a number of fungus that grow above the Mason-Dixon line, and fusarium is one of those. And then my postdoc, I worked for another terpene lab, and we were studying conifer terpenes because the Pacific yew tree is responsible for Taxol. And this is already 20 years ago. We were studying the whole enzymatic pathway of Taxol, right? Because Taxol was expensive to produce. It was an endangered species. And this is the early days of genetic engineering. So using plant cell culture to get as far along as you can so that you only have a few steps that you have to synthesize. That kind of thing. So what I'm getting at is there were probably 10 terpene labs in the world 20 years ago that cared about terpenes and probably produced the majority of folks that were mostly in the cosmetic and flavor industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
But so there's a lot known about terpenes and their structure and the pathway, that type of thing, but nobody really needed to know much except for that they were considered grass, generally considered safe for eating. But when you eat them for flavor, you have them in such small amounts, right? And there's definitely benefit. How can there not be when the majority of your herbs, basil or oregano, rosemary, lavender, you name it, are just chock full of terpenes. So
Right.
they have to have benefit. And it makes sense, from a scientific point of view, ecologically, right? Here are these plants, here are these animals, predators, bees, humans, whatever, eating this plant, and they were made to do both, so there's, yeah.
There's no question that this data is going to be useful at some point. It's just a matter of when and how it's developed and how, like you said, how it's curated and who are the actual users, who's going to consume that data. At this point, I think it's tough because it's hard to tell. I think it's too early to tell.
I was going to say, an MJ BizCon was really interesting this year. There was a lot of companies this year, big terpene companies.
Yeah.
That were just selling terpene. But it was funny because I talked to one of the girls and she was
they don't know anything.
No,
yeah, they don't.
She was so clueless. She didn't know anything. I even walked up to Larry afterwards and I was like, why did they hire her as a salesperson? I was like, she can't even sell their product. She couldn't answer any of my questions. But another thing, there was a couple female product lines, two in particular that I saw. And one, so me and Larry are working with a guy who is one of the owners of Choice Hotels, and he is all about female product line and everything. And he's also bringing Larry's company into, we're doing a presentation for him. So there is an avenue for that. And he gets excited about really all the girly stuff. But there was a product line there that made a candle. And this candle, so it was more sensual, more sex products, I would say, for females, but they had this candle and it was a CBD hemp candle, and you could pour the wax. It didn't get hot enough that it would burn you. but it ended up being this nice oil on your skin, which is super sexy, romantic, right? And I'm like, wow. So I'm automatically thinking when I see this Kindle, I'm like, oh my God, Susan, terpenes. I'm like, what if we got like, I'm like, this is the only line I've ever seen where there's this like cool candle. But yeah, I just personally, I've already told you this. I mean, if I'm gonna start a female product line, with my nursing background, I would rather have sound scientific evidence behind it. I'm not going to just go and say, hey, yeah, stick this up your woo-ha and it's going to work, you know? I mean, I would rather have like, no, this is why it's going to work. And this is who I have behind my product who's saying it's going to work. And we have the scientific evidence to show. And that's what I feel like, I've been working with Larry. This has all been like a learning process, and we've been talking, and he's completely helped me understand how all this process works. So I'm getting there, but I definitely am still interested in female product lines. And yes, we will be working together, because I don't just want to put out another hemp product and say, hey, this is what it's for. I would rather have something that's more innovative and it actually has some good sound scientific evidence behind it. So I can see, if there's more companies that are out there that want to do the right stuff, I would think that that's when, of course, it would start to really sell, right? So
yeah. And then on top of that, to tie into what you're saying and what you're interested in. So because of Treatment X, which was the canopy boulder and what we were trying to do, and that was going to be survey science, which I sort of called citizen science. And there's another term. I went to Cannapharma, and I can't remember what they called it, but they had a really great talk on the last day by someone who I think worked at NIH forever. And they are starting to create essentially, I don't know what you want to call it, digital genuine clinical trials that are very digital that, you can do because of COVID, it's even pushed that forward. And that's what we were also trying, that's what we would like to do. So what we, again, that QR code, figure out like how to get your patients, get them to do a survey, because that would be an easy one to do. Like, does it bring you pleasure? You can do the science, you can do the statistics. And you can do all of that at this point remote. And that came out of Treatment X. My Dan, you have to meet Dan. He's a character. He looks like he comes out of the 19th century, I guess, right? or I guess Victorian era. Always wears a vest, this big beard, very, but he's brilliant. And which is why both of us really, I've come to realize like neither of us really should be a CEO. I'm more of a CEO than he is, but I would happily pass that over as soon as we could find someone who, hey, you guys, let's get this going. But in a way, right, we don't have to worry, because we're not trying to get out there right now and, sell what we're doing. But yeah, and so I was very excited about this 2 or 3 years ago, that the future of a lot, there's a lot of studies that can be done that you can do in your own home, and you don't need to have this big, huge clinical trial like we're used to. And I think they asked a bunch of interesting questions, because it was a pretty serious clinical trial, and they sent them off. If they needed blood work, they sent them off to get the blood work. So you didn't have to come in with the nurse. It was all digital, and it was I'd have to go back and look at my notes. So just to throw that out there, it's completely possible to do that kind of science. It does take money. And I think what happens is everybody realizes science costs a lot.
Yes, it does.
Period.
Yep.
And so then you kind of realize in your bottom line, like, well, I really do want to do this, so I'll take the lit search instead, because the rest is going to be too expensive, because you have to send out the product, you have to do the whole campaign, even if you're, I think it's definitely cheaper the way this new model is. But nevertheless, you can't get around it. Science is expensive. You need the statistics, you need the sample size, you need the product, you need to have enough product that you can, yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they get all excited about sound science. So I guess keep that in mind, but because it's also obviously a great differentiator. If you go into the rec center or the rec or what, and like, I want that oil because I know it works. and someone did the sound science research behind it.
Yeah, it makes a difference. I mean, that's the basis of my website as well. It's I tried to portray that as much as possible, that it's backed by studies. You know, it's not like all these other companies just throwing numbers and throwing things together and selling it. You know, slap on a logo and start selling it wherever they want.
Yeah.
I'm with
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah,
think
and
it's
I mean,
more.
and just FYI, the model. So where I'm at, we're a brand new institute called the Rick Scalzo Institute, and my boss has been doing in vitro cell culture forever. His background's immunology and virology, and so he knows a lot about cells. I know a lot about genomics, but so our first client was, I guess, kind of a internal client with, and it was a company called Grotto, and I think you can see this on the website. And they had a milk product and so it wasn't even plant-based. It was sort of a natural product base. They had some proprietary milk product that was actually supposed to be good for skin, and it was supposed to also be good for Crohn's disease. And what I'm getting at is we did a study on skin cells as well as for immunology for Crohn's disease, not in detail, but just like, are these cytokines upregulated, downregulated, looking at like the gene expression, and the same thing with the cell lines, and then also wound healing. And that was about $100,000. And that's not very expensive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And yeah. So yeah, because by the time you get the cells and labor and yeah, and all, the gene expression, sending it off to know, because we did RNA-seq, yeah. So there you have it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. It's a tough place. Like I said, it's going to come down to timing.
Yeah.
When it gets to that point where users are that selective that they want this kind of information, where everybody else in this industry has to start to provide it.
Yeah. And I think that I believe that will happen, right?
Oh,
Because
I
people
agree.
want cannabis flower and they've
Yep.
got a certain type of cancer or, migraine, or, one that I was surprised about when, a couple years ago, but now I sort of understand. Like I met at one of the conferences I went to, she smokes flower. She's got really bad asthma or some kind of weird respiratory or whatever. When she smokes flower that's high in pinene, it opens up her bronchial tubes, more people
No,
that
hold on. I've been trying to figure this out, so I think you just answered the question, which, man, thank you.
I just had this whole discussion with my aunt the other day. She's like, I can't smoke anything that has pinene in it. And I said, it stinks because, I really like pinene. I really do. I feel like it helps me somewhat of a focus more than anything, but
But is
it
that
is, but pinene makes you hawk up a lung.
okay? So is there another terpene that does the opposite? Because I remember we learned about some terpene while we were in school, and I looked through my notes, I cannot figure it out. That basically eases the stress on your throat. There was a specific terpene that made you basically knock off.
I don't know off the top of my head. That's kind of the joke of being the terpene expert, that's what that database would be good for. Cause at least I can go to it and sort of send me in the right direction, but I still need to read the lit because there's so many of them. However, obviously I would start to guess things like, things for anxiety, right? So something like linalool. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but those kind of relaxant, because you're going to want something that relaxes the muscles, and that goes back to the nurse versus, the scientist. And I bet we could find that.
Yeah, I think there's one that's supposed to be an anticonvulsant, but it's funny because it's like, okay, what's the sound literature behind it?
Yeah.
But then beyond that is how much do you need for it to be effective?
Well, yeah, that's my dream. Like, so if I truly, if we got enough, I don't know, data with this professor, my dream is to start to do that research.
Yeah.
And I actually have permission to do that research at the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine. I actually got terpenes from True Terps, and I was going to start doing studies on cell lines. But I don't have the time. Yeah, so, but reality is now I know how to do it. And I may be getting a job offer from Cognizant. Have you heard of Cognizant? They're like McKinsey and Company.
Oh, wow. They're huge.
Yeah. And I'm excited and sad at the same time. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm a seasoned scientist, and I'm just really struggling. The Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine is a very small naturopath medical school, and our institute is a year and a half old. It was founded by a guy named Rick Scalzel, who founded Gaia Herbs, donated somewhere between 2 and 4 million. We can't get a straight answer. They're, it's private. They're not like a big university. But what I'm getting at is, I probably I will probably for the rest of my career not make more than $10,000 ever there. And I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And it's Phoenix, and they don't get it. And so it's the perfect job for me right now. So
Well, good luck.
and I'm a little afraid go to some place like Cognizant, and then but it's Cognizant and it's bioinformatics. It would be like managing a bunch of top companies and their RNA-seq analysis, and so that also probably cannot hurt as long as the timing is,
that certainly gives you the opportunity to be plugging away at, chipping away at making this happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, both do, but one, I'm struggling financially, and moved to Phoenix, rented out my townhouse in Colorado, and Phoenix has like I don't know, you hear between 8 and 13% inflation. I have a tiny little 800 square foot apartment. I'm paying $2,000 a rent.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds like my crazy situation.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So I have a not much bigger, but 2-bedroom here in Charleston, which is gorgeous. I mean, Charleston is freaking beautiful, and that's way under 2,000. It's fascinating to me that places like that are so much more. Where did you move from? You moved from this side?
I've been living in Golden, Colorado since probably 2001.
Okay.
So 20 minutes south of Boulder.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I love Colorado.
Love Colorado.
Yeah. Phoenix boomed overnight. Is my like a year ago when they decided to up rent an extra $250. My rent went up $250. Right? They're like, oh, well, we hear that we're supposed to be the next LA. And I'm like, well, I don't really care. It's just no. Anyway, so yeah, at least it's all upward. But research is time consuming where I'm at, but at least I can, there's benefits to both. So I don't know what's going to happen, but anyway, I should at least get Terpedia trademarked. And I don't even think it would take much for us to make $1 million company and sell it.
Yeah. Do you have the domain?
Yeah, we have the domain.
Okay.
We've got a database. We've got a website. Our website was created by him. You can go look up Google Terpedia. It needs an overhaul. I don't know if you were to do a little deal, I could give you $5,000 to do our marketing. I mean, our Terpedia needs an overhaul, because it's been done by him. And again, we aren't really trying to bring traffic to our site yet, right? Because it's not really a database that's outwardly facing yet.
Got it.
We're totally capable, but we've been sitting on it because I think we're creative scientists who have he's got 3 different. I introduced him to the cannabis industry. So he's the chief scientific officer for Good for the pain med. He's also chief science officer for a vape company. because he's designing as a really cool vape laser, just supposedly really good for precision lighting of your, we can get
Oh,
on it
nice.
again
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
can talk to
yeah.
him directly if you want, but very creative, aeronautical space engineer, engineering stuff or whatever that just went to the moon.
Yeah, I have a friend that's doing something similar. They're developing the vape for medical single use, so you can actually calibrate the dose.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
similar. Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to work on that, and I'll be curious to see.
Well, there was I can't, again, I can't remember what that was. There was a company. So my former Treatment X dude, there was a company, I think they fell through because their single dose was too expensive. But there are a couple of companies that have tried to do that have already died, but it totally makes sense, right? Because if you're a nurse or a doctor and as this becomes legal, you're not going to want to do it unless it's repeatable because you're
Right.
never going to be able to recommend anything to your patient.
Exactly right. And then whoever dials that in and gets it to the medical field is going to make a fortune.
Yeah.
Whoever gets it adopted, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when it does happen. It's going to be freaking pretty lucrative.
Yeah.
But I'll take a look at the website and talk to the guys and see if there's something they can do. But what I would recommend is, like you said, develop some product, pack of cards, anything, because if you sell something on that website, then I don't think you really have to worry about putting the money to
Exactly.
get the trademark. Because
Yeah, I think this was
because
my
if you're
Friday
the only
morning. I
company,
think this was Friday when I was like, we should just do this because it will bring traffic and it will force us to get our website.
well, not
At
just
least
that,
like
you'll
the
have
top 30 terpenes, like we'll have to get that cleaned up because we'll have a card, but then my thought was we can use QR code so it can constantly be updated. So we
oh, there
start
you go.
curating,
Yeah,
right? And somehow you get access to a certain level, of membership through your cards,
yeah.
right? Like if you just want to see what we have, or I don't know, something like that. So as far as I'm concerned, so far that's my best idea. And it was, Black Friday.
Well, don't worry too much about
And
the
don't tell
trademark.
too many people. What?
No, no, I said don't worry too much about the trademark. If you're able to do business under that name,
Which we
you've
are.
simply begun the process of trademark protection.
Yeah, we have an LLC called Terpedia LLC, which was in Colorado, and we have the
You're
website
fine.
for.
You're fine. I wouldn't worry about trademarking it until later. It's not an
Okay.
expense you need to incur. Because really the only thing you're protecting is from someone else using it. And guess what? If someone else uses it, you want them to have crazy sales because then you're going to get a piece of that money.
Oh, I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah.
You're like, go ahead, sell, baby.
Oh, that's a great. Thank you for that piece of that nugget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't know,
Yeah.
it's not just a protection thing. You've got it. You're already protected because you were first to market with the name. You've got a website, you've incorporated. Trademark
And
is that extra
I've even had
protection.
business through it, two little projects.
No, that's perfect. So I wouldn't sweat putting the money for trademark or any of that stuff. Not yet.
Well, good. Well, this was great. I mean, I'm interested in what you're doing. I am gonna, I think you recorded, right? So
Yep.
I'll share the first part, but I'm interested, but I think you said I need 10K unless maybe we have some kind of special deal where I give you 5. No, goes to my marketing and then we get in. Anyway, I am interested. But I'm going to ask Chris, my brother, who's got an MBA, and that's all he does at this point is manages his own little.
Oh, then he will completely
He
understand
will.
the model that I'm
Yeah.
talking about, the debt model that we use as
Yeah.
a client, but also what we're getting ready to put out next quarter as a
Right.
fund. Yeah, he'll
Right. So
totally get
now I can get him to listen better because it's not cannabis oriented. So
it. Yeah, just let me know.
yeah. Yeah. Well, this was fabulous. And Jaclyn, I think we caught up a little bit, but I'm happy to talk more later. on feminine products.
Yes, sounds great.
Yeah.
We'll
Good.
catch up.
Susan-
We'll catch up this week.
Okay.
Susan,
It's great meeting you, Larry.
likewise, reach out anytime. As if you couldn't tell, I love business. I love talking business. I love starting business. So
Well, I
if you ever
appreciate
need
that
any
because
advice,
we that's what we need. I've been like, I've been feeling like we need a business advisor, or something who knows the business end of things,
Right.
like our MVP, or, we've got to just decide on something. And I know better, like I said, in a way. I mean, I'm still a baby, but I know better because I've been through 2 incubators, and it's like,
Right.
it's like a formula, practically. And then you pivot, formula and pivot. And, we're just kind of
Yeah.
like sitting here pretty doing nothing.
Right. You haven't figured out the formula to get to the next step. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. Well, I
So,
mean, but like reach out if I can be of assistance by all means.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.
You're welcome. You
Yeah,
do the
safe
same.
travels back home.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All
Yeah.
right. Take care, Susan.
Bye.
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 Let me stop.